Hello again. This time I'm here to speak about a teaching experience. The teaching experience I have today is vocabulary. Yes, vocabulary, and in the context of conversation. In a class recently, I had this experience that in a conversation with the student, um, sometimes we struggle around vocabulary, me myself and the student herself or himself. And I'll tell you why this is common for different reasons. So, as a foreign teacher of English, English teacher as a foreign language in Brazil, I'm not a native speaker, you know, and it's just normal that you don't know all the words to use in a conversation, even because we don't know all the words in the language. Even in our mother language, in our native language, we don't know all the words, and let alone in a foreign language like I teach, which is English. But anyway, students, when they come to your class, they expect you to give some clues, give some hints, and give some ideas on how to say things, how to use words, and come up with the words they want to use and express their ideas themselves. And it's fair. It's just fair that they shouldn't expect this from you. Um, One reason why this is not always the case that I can point out is the fact that, for example, we as a non-native speaker, non-native teacher of the language, which I mentioned before, and another aspect is the conversation dynamics itself. And this is my point here, the dynamic of conversation. Well, in this with these students, we started the lesson talking about trivial things like everyday, like the work environment, where are you now, what are you doing, and so on. But then we turned to a more specific conversation. It was a strip, a cartoon strip that I brought for discussion, for conversation. Um, I'll put the link to that strip here in the description of this video. And it was interesting because I had read the strip before. It was only three scenes in the strip, and I had read it before. It was a conversation between two persons, a client and an attendant in a post office shop. You know what I mean? Well, as I had read this trip before, I was thinking about having this conversation from the perspective of the attendant. But then the student came up with other aspects of the conversation, which is more um, which was more related to the client's perspective of the scene. Well, um, this means that I had something in my mind. I had a goal to reach, and I wanted to guide my students to the understanding that I had about that that little short story, that little short strip. And I wasn't sure she was following my ideas, but at least I can say that we were struggling to get around the same ideas. Um, very well. Then, of course, she had her own ideas and she wanted to express her ideas of what she was thinking and what was relevant to consider, and I had mine. So in those situations, it it looks to me, it seems to me that as we have a path of thinking, the words come naturally. The words we are using to talk our ideas, they just come more naturally. But when we are dealing with the other person's ideas, it's just natural that we struggle to come up with the words that the other person is trying to use to convey um, the message. All right. But anyway, one example was that they shouldn't at a certain point of the conversation. She was talking about uh, how she liked to eat candies. In general, that was the specific topic that she wanted to make. Um, and then she tried a sentence and asked how and ask Brainy, how can I say vontade in English? Vontade is a word in Portuguese, but at that point, as I wasn't thinking on her own steps of thoughts, it came to me words like willingness or eagerness, and she struggled a bit to grasp the word I was suggesting for what she was saying. Because of course she wanted to say something very straightforward and in a very simple way. Then okay, you can say wish. My wish for eating candies, for example, in this sentence. But then then she continues with her idea. And on the other point of the conversation, she wanted to say uh, she wanted to say something like, "Oh, this place is like a manicômio," which is another word in Portuguese. And she asked, "Okay, how do you say how do you say manicômio in English, Brainy?" Well, I didn't have to think much before she herself tried a different way of saying this in a different way, in different using an expression. She came up with the word psycho hospital. Well, that was fit for what she wanted to say. But then I had to make the correction and I brought the word right, psychiatric hospital. And again, she struggled to use this word, and I said, well, uh, 4 syllables. She tried the word a couple of times, and she like, oh, I give up. This word is too difficult. And I said, no, it's 4 syllables, psychiatric. And then she naturally pronounced the word and put it in the sentence. She said, oh, this place looks like a psychiatric hospital. And I said, yes, there you go. So we seem to find a way to use those long words. So here I come with those two examples of the first word. The first word was eagerness, and the second word that she struggled to use was uh, psychiatric. And well, um, what they have in common is that they are long words, you know. And more than that, we can say that eagerness or willingness and psychiatric, they are derivated words. And by derivated words, usually make the words longer. I could say, okay, eagerness comes from eager, which in this case has only two syllables. It could help in order to pronounce the derivation eagerness, which is a noun that is derivated from the adjective eager. She only had to think of one extra syllable for the ending morpheme, right? And psychiatric is not the same way because psychiatry has the same amount of syllables. Psychiatry and psychiatric. So anyway, it would be a long word to pronounce. Okay. So in those cases, what do we do when we think about long words? I'll put another word here just to illustrate one of the aspects of long word. Dependence. Dependence. Three syllables. Eagerness, three syllables. Psychiatric, four syllables. So the first aspect is the first step is to identify how many syllables it has, and if possible, to mime the syllables in your hands as you speak it for the first time, for example. But we also have uh, to point out where the stress is in that syllables, and there are different patterns of stress in English words. So we have stress in the last syllable, in the previous syllable, in the before the previous, then the last syllable, and so on and so on. So we have different patterns of stress organization. So in the word eagerness, for example, the first syllable is the stress E, eagerness, eagerness. Can you repeat with me? Eagerness, right? So we have one strong syllable followed by two lighter syllables, eagerness, right? Uh, what about psychiatric? It's a different pattern because we have a light syllable, a weak syllable, followed by a strong syllable, which is chi, and then it follows two weak syllables. So we have psychiatric or psychiatry, right? Let alone the fact that we don't pronounce the P sound here. We start the pronunciation with the S sound. Psychiatric. Good. And then we struggled. My student and I, we weren't sure at that exact moment how to pronounce dependence. And in the first attempt, I suggested dependence, but she came with the pronunciation dependence, which I thought, okay, this follow a pattern in English, which is a pre-final stressed syllable or three syllables before the ending of the word, better saying. like dependence, like hospital, for example. All right, but I liked accepted the pronunciation for a while, but I double thought of that and I said no, it's not dependence, it's dependence. Dependence. So it's not like hospital. It's like police. Dependence. So we have a pre-stressed syllable D, and then we have the stress syllable pen, and then we have a final syllable dance. Dependence, right? So let's pronounce again those three words. First word. Can you pronounce it? And then we check together this first word here. Okay. Can you pronounce the second word here? Okay. And finally, can you pronounce the last word here? All right. So let's go for it now. Okay. I hope you write down those three words and let's practice a little bit of the stress here. Okay. I'll give you a second to write it down. Pause the video and write down those three words. So there we go. If your pronunciation was eagerness, then you got it wrong. The correct pronunciation is eagerness, like with a long E. Eagerness. Good. Eagerness and psychiatric. Psychiatric. All right, can you say that again? Psychiatric. Psychiatric hospital. And dependence. Again, dependence. There you go. Still talking about derivation in words in English. We have like words ending in call, as in typical, tip, typical. All right, typical, which is a derivation from the word type, and then and then we use this ending morpheme, this suffix call, to make an adjective. Type is a noun, and then we add call to make an adjective. And of course, there are changes inside the 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 word pronunciation, the changing of the vowel type to tip, typical, and also the change of um, on the spellings. So we change the type, the final E to letter I, and we pronounce typical. Okay, with the same stress pattern as in hospital. All right. But it's not always the case that we have those endings like call. And well, I noticed I shouldn't use the word specifical. She was talking about her her wish or her eagerness to eat specific candies at different times of her day or different times of her week, you know, and she came up with this word specifical. And as the conversation went, I decided, no, I'm not going to correct it right now. I'll wait for a delayed correction. Then she said again, specifical, na 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 na, in a sentence. And then she finally said specifical again. And then I interrupted. and I said, okay, you have used this word three times, and I have to point out that the the ending, the correct word is specific, specific, ending with k alone, or fic, or ick. Okay, ick. Let's say the um, let's say that the suffix here is ick as opposed to ickle. All right. And then I corrected her. She accepted the correction in the first sentence, and then she pronounced the sentence again with the correct pronunciation, specific. And then she came on a third time. She came back to specifical, and then I interrupted and said, "Oh," and she said, "Okay, specific." No, no, no. And then she continued. She rephrased herself. The sentence she was saying, she said it again, but with the specific um, pronunciation for specific. Right? But then she continued using other words like topical, or um, yeah, she was talking about the word topic of conversation, and then she used the word topical. And then I just said, remember, specific, it's the same for topic. So we don't say topical but topic. And then she used it in this this call ending in different words, and I say, okay, I'll have to make a video tutorial talking about it in order for her to think better about it. And every time she thinks ending in call, she uh, she she checks her pronunciation and think if it's really call and not ick at the ending. And here I come with this first part of this experience, using long words and derivated words in English. So I think that's it for now. Other aspects of this vocabulary conversation, I'll come up in a future video. All right? Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Good. See you next time. Bye bye.